Hi everybody and welcome back. Here we are at session 6 of IBS Relief Now. The topic of today's session is on sleep, that activity that we spend at least a third of our lives engaged in. We'll be talking about why it is important as a major regulator of the mind, the brain, and the body, but also we'll be talking about why establishing good restorative sleep patterns is so important when it comes to managing IBS. Throughout this session, I'll be talking about sleep as both a general regulator of different aspects of our overall health, but also some of the specific ways in which reestablishing good restorative sleep is really important when it comes to managing IBS. To start off with some of the general health benefits, sleep has a really important role to play as both a coordinator and an integrator of the different kind of experiences that we have during the course of the day. If we don't have adequate sleep, it can really feel as if our days and our nights, our weeks, are fragmented. They feel disconnected. Sleep is one of those times when our biological being works to integrate and coordinate these different experiences so that we have a more or less seamless sense of where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. That ties into a very important second role that sleep has to play as a regulator of our lives and our functions, and that is the role that it plays in memory consolidation. It is that time of our 24-hour day when the experiences that we've had during the course of the day go through a filtering process. The things that happen that are most important, most relevant, get strengthened and consolidated into memory, and those things that don't seem to have much relevance or impact at all get filtered out. The result is, when we wake up in the morning, the things that have happened that seem most relevant to our future functioning have been strengthened. They've been strengthened as memories that allow us to call on them more easily so that we have a better way of predicting what to do with what we feel comes next in the course of our day-to-day lives. So sleep is a way of strengthening memories so that they're available to us to help us feel better and function better going forward. Sleep also has a really important to play as a coordinator of different motor functions. We know that if we're really tired, we tend to be more klutzy. We tend to make more errors. We spill the coffee. We knock over the carton of milk. Because literally, without good rest, our ability to have the different muscle systems of our body function in a nice, smooth, and coordinated way as we go about our day, that gets negatively affected. But in a similar way, that coordination of muscle movement is also relevant to the muscles inside our body, our so-called smooth muscles, of which the gut is one example. So the movement of the gut, the rhythms of the gut are enhanced. They're synchronized more effectively when we have good and consistent sleep. So often the folks that I see for management of IBS not only have the symptoms of IBS with all of the distress in the belly, but I see that they also often have really disrupted patterns of sleep. Interestingly, when we help them learn to be able to sleep better, IBS symptoms improve, and the reverse is true. When we learn to control IBS symptoms, for many people, sleep, the rhythms of sleep, become much more consistent and regular. The final general benefit of being able to establish good sleep habits, restorative sleep, is that it's a prime way in which the body goes about the business of managing stress. Good sleep habits reduce the wear and tear of the day-to-day activities we engage in. It's the time when we recharge our batteries, We replenish our energy reserves so that the next day, when we wake up to face a new day, we can do so without a buildup of worries and stressors, anxieties and pressures that make management of our day more challenging and makes management of our IBS more difficult. In addition to the general health benefits of sleep, I want to talk a little bit about some of the IBS specific benefits of reestablishing good restorative sleep. Sleep is that activity that we engage in every night, during which time the body's balance between storing energy so that it's available for use and having appropriate amounts of energy available for use gets synchronized. So it is a nighttime regulator of our energy reserves. Good sleep habits tend to reduce sugar cravings, carbohydrate cravings. It helps us have a good flow of energy throughout the day so that we can begin to reduce those energy troughs that so many people report. So, for example, mid-afternoon. For me, it's between 2 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon when I feel that my head is suddenly much heavier and my eyes just want to close. When I've established good sleep habits, the cravings for sugar fixes or for other kind of high carb foods goes down, and what many people report is a nice, even, steady flow of energy throughout the day without those intense cravings that can throw off not only IBS symptoms but other aspects of our overall health. Because sleep is so effective at establishing that nice, even flow of available energy, it is really important as a regulator of blood sugar. People with diabetes or borderline diabetes and people who are at risk for developing that often have really unbalanced patterns of blood sugar throughout the day. Lots of peaks and lots of valleys that can wreak havoc with our energy reserves as well as with IBS. So establishing good sleep habits helps us to be able to maintain a nice, even flow of blood sugar levels throughout the day, which is helpful for our thought process, it's helpful for emotional regulation, it's very helpful for appetite control and weight management, as well as for management of day-to-day stressors. The research is pretty clear that when you have good sleep, your mental faculties, your cognitive functioning works more efficiently. You can make better decisions, you can feel more resilient and less affected by stressors, so stress management abilities go up, and as a result, IBS control can improve as well. Good sleep is also really important for being able to regulate digestive functioning as a whole. It helps us move away from constipation patterns and also move away from diarrhea patterns, bringing us to that middle zone where things are moved along the digestive tract at a nice, even pace, allowing us to absorb from the food what we need and allowing us to excrete the waste from our body in a much more natural, predictable, and controllable pattern. And finally, evidence suggests that when you have good patterns of sleep, your ability to regulate the type and amount of bacteria that are in your gut goes up. When you have good sleep patterns, healthier bacterial colonies tend to proliferate, and bacterial colonies that produce any of the IBS symptoms tend to be kept in check. So a really effective method for being able to bring IBS symptoms under control and the bacteria that are involved in producing IBS is to devote time and attention to establishing good restorative patterns of sleep. I also want to talk with you a little bit about the relationship between sleep, IBS, and emotional regulation. I've talked in a previous session about the high rate with which the folks that I see present with different patterns of anxiety, worry, and significant distress. Distress both related to IBS and then distress related to the challenges they face in their day-to-day lives. When people have good sleep habits, their ability to manage those stressors is improved tremendously. Without restorative sleep, a number of things begin to show up. People tend to show increased irritability. They tend to feel more fatigued, having less energy to do what they need to do. They feel less resilient, more easily thrown off when the unexpected is encountered in their days. Without good sleep, they tend to react more strongly, more powerfully to any stressor, even to relatively minor ones. They start to show a heightening or an increase of difficulties that they already had with anxiety or depression, or it puts them at risk for developing anxiety or depression pattern. Without good sleep habits, the brain's ability to distinguish what is relevant and what is not, what is important and should be paid attention to, and what is irrelevant and should be ignored, gets hampered. As a result, people with poor sleep habits feel as if they're constantly on. They're feeling this onslaught of incoming pressures and demands and stimuli that leaves them feeling overwhelmed and depleted. Well, you can guess if that's how you function with poor sleep habits, imagine the impact of that on IBS functioning. And you can begin to see this vicious cycle that gets established. Poor sleep can lead to increased IBS. Increased IBS can lead to more difficulties handling the stressors of the day. Poorly managed stressors of the day can lead to more IBS. And both of those, in turn, can be taken right into bed with us at night, leading to, once again, another night of poor sleep, so that the next day we start the cycle all over again. So good sleep habits are a way to break up that pattern of intensifying distress in the body and distress in day-to-day life, and put us on a more resilient path to be able to manage the demands of the body and the demands of our day more effectively. Now, while there are many, many different kind of supplements, minerals, vitamins that all make a difference in improving IBS symptoms, for now I want to talk about two that have a role both with IBS and with sleep, and they are calcium and magnesium. Magnesium in particular is a very essential mineral that's involved in over 300 different bodily functions. It tends to be a relaxer. It tends to soothe and ease tension inside the body. So lo and behold, magnesium is helpful not only for being able to go to sleep, it is also helpful in being able to bring IBS symptoms, especially when people tend to have IBS patterns that involve constipation. It tends to soothe and ease the pressure in the gut so that things can move through more smoothly. So magnesium has that dual benefit. Calcium tends to have the opposite effect, but they work in tandem with each other. For people who tend to have a lot of difficulties with diarrhea, calcium is something that can improve the regularity of bowel movements so that you're not having these multiple bouts of diarrhea each day. It's important that you talk with your physician or your medical professional to take a look at your baseline levels of magnesium and calcium and be able to suggest what ratio and what amounts of magnesium and calcium might be able to make a difference in how you're able to regulate that pattern between too loose and too firm bowel movements and also to be able to have greater predictability and control of when those bowel movements occur. The next issue that I'd like to address has to do with this mirroring that takes place between what happens at night while we sleep and how we live our days. They really do reflect one another. When days are filled with any number of stressors, whether they are stressors related to IBS or the things, the challenges that we face in our day, it's very common to take those concerns, those worries, those anxieties right into bed with us. So the patterns of sleep are often a reflection of the patterns of difficulty that we experience during the day. To put you onto a path that leads to better sleep, it is therefore really important to pay good attention to what happens during the day. One of the most important things that can be done is to really pay attention to what I call lifestyle pacing. The more you move through your day in a pell-mell rush, the more likely it is that that tension, that stress is being picked up by the gut, it's going to be carried over into sleep, and we're going to have disturbed. We often have lighter sleep. We're easily awakened. Dreams can be agitating. In general, we just don't find that the hours of sleep are relaxing and refreshing. We get up in the morning anxious, as if we're just waiting for the starter's pistols to fire, and we're off on yet another sprint to take us through the next helter-skelter day. So being able to pace, to be mindfully aware of how we're moving, how slowly, how quickly we're moving, is a really good way to be able to begin to regulate our days so that we can more effectively regulate our nights with good sleep. In my experience, people really benefit from taking many parasympathetic pauses. That's what I call them. They are momentary, 10-second, 30-second pauses during the day where we literally stop to catch our breath. We take a few moments to notice how we're breathing. We take some time to notice, is there tension in our neck and shoulders, and we might stretch them a bit to relieve that pressure. We might notice how good it feels to take in a nice breath, hold it, and then slowly exhale. Or perhaps even pausing for 10 seconds and closing our eyes and just thinking of something pleasant, calming, and soothing before opening our eyes and going on with the activities of the day. It really doesn't take much time at all, but the benefits can be significant and long-lasting, not only in terms of improving IBS control, but also as a preamble, you might say, to being able to have better sleep at night. Another key change to being able to reestablish better sleep is to recognize that sleep really developed in synchrony with the cycles of the moon, the stars, and the sun. So as the sun begins to go down in the evening, it's important that our activity level begins to go down as well. As evening falls, it's important to begin to turn down the intensity of the lights in your home. As evening transitions to night, it's important to slow down the pace of how you're moving and thinking and doing. It's important to be able to turn down sources of other sensory input. It can be important to turn down the volume on the TV. Turn down the volume on Alexa or your Echo. In general, it's a time to begin to wind down, to quiet down, to turn down the sensory input. That allows you to get synchronized with the body's production of things like melatonin and the patterns of the production of cortisol, the body's stress hormone. So as the sun begins to set, it's important for you to synchronize yourself with that cycle of light and dark so that you're ready to go to sleep, You're not pushing yourself until you just fall into bed exhausted and expect to be able to have a good night's sleep. The benefits for IBS control are tremendous when you learn to bring that kind of lifestyle pacing right into your evening and nighttime routines. Along with that, it's really important to eat your last meal of the day early enough in the evening that you allow for 2 and even 3 hours of time to elapse from when you finish your last bite and you finally get into bed. That allows the stomach to empty and for the digestive system to go into this nighttime mode that is really cooperative with the ability to sleep well. One of the things that I find that helps at pre-positioning us to get that stomach emptied and to get the digestive system ready for a good night's sleep is to be able to take a 15 or 20 minute slow leisurely walk after dinner, weather permitting. For many of my clients who have the worries and stressors of the day weighing heavily on their mind even as the day winds down, I have many people who, as the sun sets, they begin to worry about what they didn't finish today and they're already anticipating what they're going to face in the morning. So being able to do what I call a mind dump can really be helpful. A mind dump is when you may take out a journal, a notebook, even your computer screen, although the problem there is the light from the screen can actually be stimulating. So the old-fashioned way of writing out some notes can actually be quite helpful. I recommend that people take 5, 10, even 15 minutes and simply write down the concerns that they have, maybe projects that they need to take care of, things that are on their to-do list. The point is that once that mind dump is completed, many people feel that their tension level and their worry level drops down a few notches because they've got it saved on paper. They don't have to keep it active in their mind lest they forget. So that kind of mind dump for anywhere between 5 and 15 minutes before you go to sleep can be a wonderful additional activity you engage in to clear your mind and prepare your body, including your gut, for a good restful night's sleep. And finally, before you go to bed, it's helpful to have a day-ending ritual, a day-ending activity. For some people, a cup of chamomile tea can be helpful. It has sleep-inducing, mind and body relaxing benefits. For other people, it's a good time to meditate. For still others, it's a time for prayer. And for still others, reading a magazine or a book, something that is interesting but not so engaging as to be stimulating, is another way of closing down the day and then making this transition into bed, going to sleep, and anticipating being able to have a full and restorative night's sleep so that your gut can quiet down, your IBS symptoms can subside, and you can awaken in the morning with the energy you need to carry you through the day effectively with feelings of competence and mastery and good IBS control. So that's it for session 6. We've got a couple more ahead of us as we wind down our course together. I look forward to joining you again for session 7.